My name is Dennis Smith, and what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core. I never believed in near-death experiencing until I had one myself. On the 1st of April 2026, my life ended in an instant. But what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about reality. I was a Navy SEAL, trained to handle the impossible. Yet nothing could have prepared me for standing face to face with Jesus Christ and receiving a message about what is coming upon this earth that still sends tremors through my soul. There are men who have seen combat, men who have looked death in the face across a battlefield and kept moving. I was one of those men, and I am telling you that nothing I encountered in all my years of service shook me the way what happened on April 1st, 2026 shook me. Nothing even came close. The morning started like any other training exercise. We were conducting a routine live fire drill at the naval base in Virginia Beach. The spring air was crisp, carrying that familiar scent of salt water and diesel fuel. I remember adjusting my tactical vest one final time, feeling the weight of my gear, completely unaware that these would be my last earthly sensations for a period of time that would change my life forever. My team was positioned for a complex urban warfare simulation, something we had done hundreds of times before. There was nothing about that morning that felt different, nothing that made me pause, nothing that told me what was coming. I was moving through the mock building when I heard the sharp crack that would end everything. A malfunction in the training ammunition. A ricochet that found its mark with surgical precision. The bullet struck me directly in the chest, piercing through my tactical vest like it was made of paper. The impact threw me backward against the concrete wall, and for a split second I felt the burning sensation spread through my torso, then nothing. No pain, no fear, just a strange weightlessness that I had never experienced before in all my years of training and deployment. I watched my body crumple to the ground as my teammates rushed toward me, their voices growing distant and hollow. I tried to speak, tried to tell them I was okay, but no sound came. That is when I realized I was floating above the scene, looking down at my own lifeless form sprawled on the training facility floor. I could see my own face from above. I could see the position of my arms and my legs. I could see my teammates working on me with urgency. And I want to tell you that seeing your own body from outside it is one of the most disorienting and sobering things that can happen to a human being. There is a separation to it, a distance, like looking at something that belongs to you, but is no longer you, in that moment. The transition happened so quickly it felt like stepping through an invisible doorway. One moment I was observing the chaos below, the next I was surrounded by a light so brilliant it should have been blinding, yet somehow it filled me with perfect peace. This was not the harsh fluorescent lighting of the facility. This was something alive, something that pulsed with love and recognition, something that knew me before I had time to introduce myself to it. The space around me shifted, and suddenly I found myself standing in what I can only describe as a realm beyond physical description. The ground beneath my feet felt solid yet luminous, like crystallized starlight. The air itself seemed to sing with harmonies I had never heard before, melodies that spoke directly to my spirit without passing through my ears. Not music exactly, something deeper than music, something that reached places inside me that sound had never reached before. That is when I saw him approaching through the radiance. Jesus Christ walked toward me with a presence that commanded every atom of my being to bow in reverence. His face carried the weight of infinite compassion, yet his eyes burned with an authority that made galaxies tremble. He was not the gentle shepherd from Sunday school paintings. He was not the pale, distant figure from the religious artwork I had seen growing up. This was the risen King, the Alpha and Omega, the one who holds the keys to death and hell. And standing in front of him, every defense I had ever built inside myself, every wall, every trained response, every instinct that had kept me alive in the field, none of it meant anything. None of it offered any kind of protection from the weight of his presence. He said my name, Dennis, and my name on his lips carried the power of creation itself. He told me I had served with honor, but that my greatest mission was only now beginning. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by his glory, but he reached down and lifted me to my feet with hands that bore the scars of crucifixion. Those wounds glowed with divine light, reminding me that love had conquered death itself. I want to pause here and tell you something about those hands. In all my years as a SEAL, I had seen what weapons do to a human body. I had seen wounds, and I knew what they looked like, and what I saw on his hands was real. The marks were real. They were not symbolic or illustrative. They were present and visible, and they carried their own light, I whispered. My voice somehow finding strength in his presence, asking him why I was there. His expression grew solemn, and the light around us intensified. He revealed to me that what was coming upon this earth in the days and weeks and months ahead required his people to be prepared, that the time of casual Christianity was over, that what was approaching was not a small thing, and that he had brought me to that place to see and to carry back what I saw. He gestured, and the space before us transformed into a vast window overlooking the earth. I could see the planet spinning slowly below, but something was different. Streams of golden light were rising from various points across the globe, connecting like a divine network of prayer and intercession. He revealed to me that what I was seeing were the prayers of his faithful remnant, that they had been crying out for revival, for his kingdom to come, and that their prayers had reached the throne room of heaven. As I watched, the streams of light grew brighter and more numerous. I could see them emanating from small churches in places most people have never heard of, from homes where families knelt together in the early hours of the morning, from hospital rooms where believers clung to faith in their darkest hours, each stream carrying the hopes and desperate pleas of those who still believed in the power of the Most High. And I watched those streams rise and connect and form something that looked, from where I was standing, like a living canopy of prayer stretched over the earth. He then revealed to me that what is currently happening in this month of May 2026 is not random, that what looks like confusion and instability across the nations of the earth is connected to something much larger than what human eyes can see. He showed me the spiritual dimension of what is taking place right now in these very days, and it shook me to my foundation. He revealed to me that forces of darkness have been assigned to specific nations, assigned with precision and with purpose and with a clear strategy behind them, and that their assignment is to push those nations into a state of spiritual and physical unrest from which recovery becomes harder with every passing week. This was not chaos without direction. This was organized, this had intention behind it, and what I was seeing in the spirit explained things I had watched happening in the natural world that I had not been able to fully understand before that moment. But then he showed me the other side of it. He showed me angels, mighty angels, full of light and authority, being dispatched in response to the prayers of intercessors, people who most of the world has never heard of and will never give an award to. People who rise in the early hours of the morning and pray when no one is watching and no one is applauding. He revealed to me that those prayers were not falling on empty air, that God was receiving them and responding to them, and sending help because of them, that the only thing standing between where this nation currently is and complete spiritual darkness is the prayers of a faithful remnant who have not yet given up. I want you to let that settle inside you for a moment. The prayers of ordinary people. That is what is holding back the full weight of what has been sent against this nation. He revealed to me that this month of May 2026 is a critical month, not next year, not some distant future season, this month, right now. What takes root in people's hearts during this period will determine much of what follows in the months ahead, the decisions people make, the prayers people pray or do not pray, the positions people hold or abandon. All of it matters right now in a way that people cannot fully see from where they are standing. And then he showed me something that I have not been able to stop thinking about since I came back. He showed me two versions of the same picture. The first showed a nation with light still present in it. Struggling, yes, under pressure from many directions, yes. Being pushed hard by forces it could not fully see, but with enough prayer and enough intercession still rising from within it to hold back the full weight of what was being sent against it. The light was not strong everywhere. In some places it was thin and flickering, but it was there, and it was enough. And then he showed me the second version, the same nation, the same borders, the same cities, but this time there was no resistance rising from within it, no intercession, no prayers going up, no canopy of faith stretched over it, and I watched as darkness moved through it without opposition, state by state, city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood, until there was no light remaining anywhere in the picture, complete darkness, complete control by the forces that had been sent against it. He revealed to me that the difference between those two pictures was not a government decision. It was not a military strategy or an economic policy or an election result. The difference was prayer. The prayers of ordinary people who decided that their position in God mattered enough to hold on to it. Fathers and mothers on their knees. Young people who chose to seek God instead of distraction. Seniors who refused to abandon their post even when their bodies were tired and the results of their prayers were not immediately visible to them. And then his expression grew more serious and he revealed to me 3 specific things that are moving toward this nation in the weeks ahead. Beginning now in this month of May 2026, The first thing he showed me was something I did not expect. It was not a war. It was not a natural disaster. It was not the kind of thing that makes headlines or that military training prepares a man for. It was something quieter than all of those things, and in some ways is more dangerous, precisely because of how quiet it was. He showed me a breaking down of emotional connection inside families, and it was beginning with the seniors, the grandparents, the elderly fathers and mothers who had spent years building relationship with their children and grandchildren. I watched as something moved through their hearts like a slow and invisible current, and began to produce a dislike, an irritation, a growing coldness toward the very people they had always loved most. There was no argument to point to, no single event that had caused it, no reason that anyone standing on the outside could identify. It was simply there, growing quietly and steadily, and the people experiencing it were accepting it as normal without understanding what it actually was. He revealed to me what was behind it. He told me that the enemy had been watching, and what he had observed was that many seniors were in a season of drawing very close to God, making things right, settling old matters of the heart, and the closeness they had found with God was beginning to flow outward into their families, into their grandchildren, into the younger generations around them. The seniors were becoming instruments in the hand of God to speak truth and correction and guidance into the lives of young people at a moment when those young people desperately needed exactly that kind of voice, not a voice from their peers, not a voice from social media, a voice that had lived long enough to know what it was talking about, and the enemy could not allow it to continue undisturbed. So he released what I can only call a spiritual virus of hatred and dislike into the hearts of seniors. Not a physical virus, a spiritual one. Its purpose was to create a veil, to cover their hearts and blind them to what God was trying to do through them, to sever the connection between them and their families at the very moment when that connection was most needed and most powerful. He revealed to me that the weeks and months ahead are very crucial, that this period we are entering right now carries a weight of spiritual importance that most people are not aware of. And the enemy's strategy, his deliberate and calculated strategy, is to ensure that the people God has positioned to carry something important into this season are rendered ineffective before it fully begins. The coldness would start quietly from this month of May, and most people, including the seniors experiencing it, would not recognize it for what it truly was. The second thing he showed me followed directly from the first, and when it was revealed to me, I understood immediately why the order mattered. He showed me that the seniors who had been walking closely with God were the ones who carried a particular kind of authority when they spoke to younger generations about sexual sin. Not a theoretical authority, not a religious authority based on titles or positions, a lived authority. They had walked through those battles themselves, they had fallen in some of them, they had found grace and gotten back up. They had come out the other side carrying something that only people who have actually been through a thing can carry, and because of that journey, their voice carried weight with younger people, even when those younger people did not openly show that it was reaching them. But when the first virus of disconnection and hatred cut the relationship between seniors and the young people around them, that covering was removed. That voice went quiet, and younger people, now without that correction and without that covering, began to drift toward secrecy, private places, toward hidden habits that no one around them could see. And then a second specific assignment was sent directly into that space that the disconnection had created, the spirit of masturbation, moving in deliberately and quietly. And it found very little resistance when it arrived, because the people who would have provided that resistance had already been neutralized by the first virus. The young people received it. They found in it what felt like comfort, what felt like relief in a difficult season, without understanding what they were losing in those private moments that felt harmless to them. And the same reached back toward some of the seniors themselves. People who had genuinely believed they had overcome that particular battle. People who had walked in freedom from it for years, and who spoke to others about freedom from it, but now cut off from the accountability and the closeness with God that had sustained that freedom. They drifted back toward it, slowly, almost without noticing, the way a boat drifts when no one is paying attention to the current. He showed me what this looked like. It's in the spiritual realm, and it was one of the most painful things I witnessed during the entire experience. I saw crowns on the heads of young people, real crowns, present and visible in the spirit, placed there by God and representing something real about their identity and their calling. And as they gave themselves over to what was being sent against them in those private and hidden moments, I watched those crowns fall, one by one. And when a crown fell, dark entities moved toward it with speed and carried it away to somewhere I could not see clearly. But the place they were going was dark. And the young person whose crown had just fallen had no awareness at all that it had happened. For the seniors, I saw chairs, positions they had occupied in the spirit through years of faithfulness and intercession and prayer and obedience. Seats of spiritual authority and influence that they had earned through a long walk with God. As the hatred consumed them, and they accepted the coldness in their hearts as just the way things were now, I watched them stand up from those chairs and walk away from them without any understanding that they were doing it. And the moment they vacated those seats, something dark moved in immediately and sat down. The demons took the chairs. They settled into the space those seniors had abandoned, and they were in no hurry to leave. They had been waiting for exactly that opportunity. The third thing he revealed to me was larger in scale and more visible than the first two. He showed me a systematic and organized movement against the Christian faith coming from the direction of government, and he was very clear that it would not arrive suddenly or announce itself obviously. It would begin as something small and manageable, a policy here, a restriction there, language buried in a document that most people would never read carefully enough to notice. It would feel like something that could be waited out, something that reasonable people on both sides would eventually work out through the normal processes, but it would not stay small. It would not be worked out through normal processes. It would grow. And as it grew, it would move from being a quiet, bureaucratic inconvenience to being direct and increasing pressure on believers in their daily lives. The freedom to gather openly. The freedom to speak about faith in public spaces. The freedom to operate according to conviction in professional settings. These things would come under organized and sustained pressure, and those who chose to hold their faith publicly and visibly would find that doing so came with a real and growing cost. Positions lost, relationships strained, comfort surrendered, and for some, safety itself coming into question, and then the effects would spread beyond the walls of the church entirely. Because when the spiritual foundation of a nation is systematically weakened, the consequences do not stay contained in the spiritual realm. They move into economics, into social stability, into the daily lives of people who had never attended a church and never believed that what happened inside one had any bearing on their lives. It had everything to do with their lives. It always had. He looked at me then, with an expression that I will carry for the rest of my life. The expression of someone who is telling you something important and needs you to understand that it is important. He revealed to me that I had been shown these things not to satisfy my curiosity and not to give me a story to tell, that I had been shown them to prepare hearts, that when I returned, many would doubt my words, some would laugh, some would dismiss the whole thing as a trauma response from the injury. He told me not to be discouraged by that skepticism, that the signs would begin to manifest before the eyes of people who had refused to believe, and that when they did, those who had heard this testimony would already know what they were looking at. He told me to tell them that he is coming, that the time of preparation is real and it is not forever, that the door of mercy is open right now, in this month of May 2026, but that it will not remain open indefinitely, that those who are not ready should repent now and not wait for a more convenient moment, and that those who are ready and who know where they stand should hold their position with everything they have and not let go of it, regardless of what comes against them in the days ahead. The light around me began to intensify until everything became pure radiance, and I felt myself being pulled back through something I have no language to describe, back through dimensions that my military training gave me absolutely no framework for, carrying inside my spirit the full weight of everything I had just been shown. The weight of it did not feel light. It felt like a responsibility I had not asked for and could not put down. I gasped as breath filled my lungs again, my eyes opened to see faces above me, the ceiling of the medical bay, the steady sound of equipment, voices of people who were relieved and busy around me. I was back in Virginia Beach. It was still the 1st of April 2026, and I want to tell you clearly that everything I had seen remained completely sharp in my memory. Every detail, every image, every word that had been revealed to me. None of it faded. None of it blurred. It sat inside me with the same clarity and weight that it had carried in that place, and it has not left me since. I lay there in that medical bay, and I knew two things with a certainty that went beyond anything I had ever been certain of in my life. I had been brought back, and I had been brought back for a reason that had nothing to do with my own comfort or my own plans for the rest of my life. I am sharing this now because I was told to share it, not because I enjoy being doubted, not because I have anything to gain from stepping forward with something this unusual, but because what I saw was not shown to me for my own benefit alone. It was shown to me for the people who would hear it, for the people reading these words right now, in this month of May 2026, when the things I was shown are already beginning to move in the world around us. If you look carefully at what is happening right now in families, in governments, in the spiritual atmosphere of this nation, you will see it. The things I was shown are not distant future events. They are present. They are here. They are moving right now. Check your heart today. If you are a senior and you have felt a growing coldness toward your family, a shrinking desire to be near the people you have always loved, an irritation or dislike that you cannot trace back to any specific reason, do not accept that as aging or tiredness or just how relationships go over time. Recognize it for what it is. Bring it before God in prayer and refuse to let it settle into your heart as normal. Your position matters more than you currently know. The enemy knows how much it matters. That is exactly why he is working so hard to move you out of it. If you are young and you have been struggling in private with things you have not told anyone, I am asking you to bring it into the light, not to a stranger, to God first. What you lose in those hidden moments is real, even when no one around you can see it happening. The crown on your head is real, and it is worth protecting. And to every believer reading this right now, let me say this as plainly as I know how to say it. The time to begin praying is not when things get worse. It is now. It is this month. What you do with your knees in May 2026 matters in ways that will show up in the months that follow. What you decide about your prayer life right now, whether you treat it as essential or optional, that decision has consequences that go beyond your own household. The difference between the nation that stays in the light and the nation that goes completely dark is not a politician. It is not a policy. It is not an election or an economic decision or a military strategy. It is you. It is your prayers. It is whether you decide that what God placed in your hands is worth the fight to keep it. I have told you what I saw. I have told you what I was sent back to say. I have done the part that was assigned to me. What you do with it now is between you and God. But please, I am asking you as a man who has seen what I have seen, do not wait. Do not let this be something you heard and felt and then set aside because life got busy again. The door is open right now. Walk through it. If this testimony has stirred something real inside you, do not let that feeling pass without acting on it. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment and tell us where you are watching or reading from so we can stand with you in prayer for your region and your family. Subscribe so you do not miss what we continue to share as these days unfold around us. And most importantly, before you do anything else, pray. Right now, in whatever words you have, God hears them. He has always heard them. And right now, more than ever, they matter. The time is short. The door is still open. And the prayers of ordinary people are still holding back the dark. Do not stop praying.